What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Like I said in the previous video, I'm going to upload two videos for you guys today. I decided to break this out into two videos because it can be two separate topics, and they're similar in that, you know, you're trying to create mismatches on defense, or you're trying to create mismatches in, one way or another. But I want to discuss specifically the sub linebacker position here in Madden 20 and discuss some of the ways that you can utilize the sub linebacker position to create mismatches for yourself that are to your advantage on defense. So what ends up happening a lot of the times in Madden is, at least nowadays, you get a lot of fast tight ends, you get fast slot wide receivers, guys that linebackers can't cover. That's the way that the NFL is going these days. You'll see a lot of linebackers coming off the field, middle linebackers, outside linebackers sometimes in a 4-3 formation, coming off the field in pass coverage scenarios because they're at a disadvantage. And you want to recognize that. If you're just setting your sub linebackers as your middle linebackers in a formation, you're probably at a huge disadvantage, and you can create a mismatch in your favor by switching those things around. So first and foremost, let's discuss the fact that the middle linebackers have a large speed difference for the most part than wide receivers or tight ends that they're going to be going up against. So kind of on the high end here, this middle linebacker has 85 speed and 89 acceleration, which is decent. He might be able to match up against some tight ends. He's not going to be able to match up against wide receivers, and certainly with his low agility rating of only 80, he's going to struggle to be able to change directions and break on the ball. He's going to be pretty stagnant, sitting in one spot, maybe moving around a little bit, and that's going to be what the offense is going to target. When you have guys like this sitting in your sub linebacker formation, what's going to happen is the offense knows, okay, I just have to time this right. Once this receiver breaks the linebacker's not going to be able to react to it in time to get to the ball. Likewise, there are a lot of linebackers that have lower speed, like Ray Murphy here in the 80s, in the low 80s, and that's not going to be beneficial to you whenever you're going up against wide receivers and tight ends that have speed into the 90s. You're looking at wide receivers mostly going to have speed into the 90s. You're obviously going to be going against a slot wide receiver a lot of the time with the way that the game plays. You might be going up against a running back coming out of the backfield who's generally speaking going to have 90-ish speed. As you can see here with these running backs out of this, and a lot of tight ends, some of the tight ends don't have high speed to match up, but what's going to happen is a lot of the tight ends in the league are actually going to have pretty high speed. So I don't know if I can find any good examples. A guy like Irv Smith here is a good example of that. A guy that has very good speed for a tight end is going to be able to beat your linebackers that are generally speaking going to be dropping back in coverage. And so in order to create a mismatch for yourself, in order to create a mismatch in your favor to prevent those guys from being able to do anything, you're going to want to change your sub linebacker formation to where you are putting in safeties and potentially corners into the sub linebacker formation. And so what I will do a lot of times in a sub linebacker or a passing type of formation is I will take one of my better safeties, a guy like I don't have very good ones on this team, but a guy like Jonathan Pleasance, a guy that has the speed to be able to match up with tight ends and match up with wide receivers. And I'll bump him into my middle linebacker, sub linebacker spot. And so I will have, generally speaking, I would go with something like this, where my number one sub linebacker is a speedy, and then I at least have one guy that is more capable of stopping the run in case they run out of a formation like that. So I have a good combination there that kind of prevents them from being able to exploit one way or the other. If you sub in two defensive backs, they'll probably be able to run real easily against you because those defensive backs will get blocked pretty easily. But if you keep one linebacker that has decent speed and one defensive back in the sub linebacker formation, it's harder for them to game plan against because they can't just take advantage of the fact that you only have cover guys out there, and they can't take advantage of the fact that you only have run stuffing linebackers out there. And then what I do to create an even further mismatch is, if you're in a passing scenario, you have that safety coming into the box, why don't you take an extra corner and put them on the field into the strong safety position where you just vacated it with your strong safety? And so what I would do in that situation, I would take one of my better corners, and obviously I don't have very good ones on this team, and I would play one of my corners that have higher speed, like in the 90s or something like that, and have higher man and zone coverage skills, and put them in at the strong safety position. And so you can better match up against their players. And if they come out with a tight end that's going to attack the middle of the field, your sub linebacker is at an advantage, and that is a mismatch for you in your favor, because he is significantly faster and probably better at being able to break on the ball, and will be able to knock those passes out, maybe create some tip drill scenarios for you. And you'll notice yourself getting a lot more batted balls in the middle of the field. You'll notice yourself getting a lot more interceptions off of plays like this. And so the general idea stays the same between this video, the last video, and the defensive line video, where you're just generally trying to get your players moving from one position to another, so that the offense can't just constantly attack the same players. A great example of this is my buddy for the Cardinals, or that was on the Cardinals, would constantly play not Van Der Esch. He would constantly play, who is it? He would constantly play Budda Baker in the sub linebacker position. And the advantage of this is that he would have just insane coverage dudes all over the field in pass coverage scenarios, but then he would also have a guy like Leighton Vander Esch on the field, and so you couldn't just easily run against their formation, and you couldn't do anything to pass against their formation, because they'd have the extra, they'd have Budda Baker sitting down inside the box, who's just insane at covering. You're never going to get a tight end open against a guy like Budda Baker. You're rarely going to get a slot receiver open against a guy like Budda Baker, and so that's a huge mismatch in favor of the defense. And then what he would do is he would just take one of his extra corners, and he had a couple better corners at this point in time. He'd take a guy like Byron Murphy or Steven Nelson, and he'd bump him into the free safety position, and he'd play just as well. And he got mismatches that way and helped himself out on defense by putting players out of position. And so you never knew where a guy was going to be on any given play. If he came out in a nickel formation, Budda Baker could be down inside the box. If he came out in a base formation, Budda Baker could be up at the top of the field. He could have extra linebackers on the field, and it creates a little bit more confusion from the offensive perspective. You never know exactly where a player is going to be. If you sit back on defense and let yourself get predictable, that's whenever your defense is going to get carved apart. Whenever you start getting your players moving around to different positions, putting them on different positions in the depth chart, you're going to start to create mismatches. You're going to start to create confusion for the offense. And I know I've said it 100 times in the past 3 videos, but that's the general idea of it. You're able to create mismatches that way. So hopefully this helps you guys out in some way. I know it's a super simple video. Let me know what you guys want to see in the next couple videos. I only split this into 2 videos because I think that they can be addressed separately, and I wanted to get you guys some bonus content. I'll be bringing you guys a lot more videos coming up. I have a lot of updates to do on that Pittsburgh Pirates franchise in MLB The Show 20, so if you guys want to see any of that, make sure you guys let me know down in the comment section. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a good one, and stay safe.